Imagine a world where the scent of cloves and nutmeg hangs heavy in the humid air, a world of bustling ports and ancient palaces. Now picture two people from opposite ends of that world, their lives destined to collide. This isn't just a love story. It's the story of how two cultures, two empires, and two souls found a common language in a time of great division. What happens when the rigid order of colonial Europe meets the mystical grace of a Javanese royal court? Stay with me as we journey back to 1890s Batavia to uncover a romance that defied an empire and created a world of its own. In the heart of Batavia, the jewel of the Dutch East Indies, lived Peter van der Zee. He was the son of a powerful spice trader, a young man raised on numbers, ledgers, and the unshakable belief in Dutch superiority. His world was one of straight lines and paved streets, of colonial mansions with their cool tiled floors and formal dinner parties. For Peter, Java was a land to be managed, its riches to be catalogued and shipped back to Amsterdam. He saw the local people as subjects, a part of the exotic landscape, but not a part of his reality. His future was already mapped out. Take over the family business, marry a respectable Dutch woman, and continue the legacy of the Van der Zee trading empire. He was a man of logic and commerce, his heart untouched by the island's deeper rhythms. Miles away, yet in a world entirely different, was Kahaya. Her name meant light, and she was a principal dancer in the royal court of the Sultan. Her life was not governed by clocks or contracts, but by the subtle cadence of the Gamelan orchestra and the ancient stories told through movement. Each gesture of her hand, each turn of her head, was a word in a sacred centuries-old language. Her world was one of intricate batik patterns, fragrant frangipani blossoms, and a profound spiritual connection to the land and its traditions. For Kahaya, the Dutch were a distant, powerful force, their presence felt but not understood. They were the ones with loud voices and heavy boots who lived in a separate city, their world seemingly impenetrable and irrelevant to the spiritual artistry that defined hers. Her duty was to the court, to her art, and to the ancestors whose stories she embodied. Their encounter was as unlikely as it was inevitable. The Sultan, in a gesture of diplomacy, invited a delegation of prominent Dutch merchants to a royal performance. Peter attended out of obligation, expecting to be bored by what he considered primitive entertainment. He sat stiffly in his high-collared suit, observing the proceedings with a detached curiosity. And then, Kahaya appeared on the stage. As the first notes of the gamelan echoed through the pavilion, she began to dance. For Peter, it was as if the world tilted on its axis. He had never seen anything so utterly captivating. It wasn't just the shimmering silks or the delicate golden headdress. It was the way she commanded the space with a quiet, powerful grace. Every movement was precise yet fluid, telling a story his mind couldn't translate, but his soul instantly understood. He saw not a colonial subject, but a vessel of profound beauty and ancient wisdom. In that moment, the neat columns in his ledgers and the maps of his trade routes seemed meaningless. He was utterly fascinated, not just by her, but by the world she represented, a world he suddenly realized he knew nothing about. Driven by an obsession he couldn't explain, Peter began seeking ways to see her again. He used his family's influence to gain further access to the court, under the pretense of studying local arts for commercial purposes. He would stand at the edge of the practice pavilions, watching for hours as Kahaya and the other dancers perfected their craft. At first, she and her fellow dancers were wary of this strange Dutchman who watched them with such intensity. He was an outsider, a symbol of the power that overshadowed their lives. But Peter was persistent and surprisingly respectful. He didn't demand or command. He simply watched, his gaze filled not with arrogance, but with genuine wonder. Slowly, a silent conversation began. He would leave small, respectful gifts, not lavish jewels, but rare, beautiful seashells or a single perfect flower from the mountains. She, in turn, would occasionally meet his gaze, offering a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. Through translators, they began to speak. He asked her about the stories in her dances, about the meaning behind each gesture. She, in turn, asked him about his distant, cold country, about the ships that crossed the oceans. He learned that her dance was not entertainment. It was a form of prayer, a way to maintain balance between the visible and invisible worlds. It was her identity, her lineage, and her spirit made manifest. But as their connection deepened, so did their misunderstanding. Peter, in his Western mind, saw their growing affection as a romance in the European sense. He imagined a future where he could take her away from the court, perhaps even marry her, and have her live in his Dutch world. He believed his love could free her. He failed to grasp that for Kahaya. Leaving the court was not freedom. It would be like tearing a tree from its roots. Her identity was intrinsically tied to her community, her spiritual duties, and her art. To leave would be to lose herself entirely. The breaking point came when Peter finally confessed his feelings, proposing a life together, away from what he saw as the confines of her tradition. To his shock and dismay, Kahaya reacted not with joy, but with deep sorrow and confusion. She tried to explain that her path was not her own to choose, that her life belonged to the court and the traditions she served. For her, love was not about individual possession, but about shared duty and spiritual harmony. She couldn't simply abandon her world for his, just as he couldn't abandon his own. The chasm between their worldviews seemed immense, unbridgeable. The love they had felt so transcendent was now crashing against the hard realities of their cultures. He saw her devotion as a prison. She saw his desire for individual happiness as selfish and shallow. Their beautiful connection seemed doomed, a casualty of two worlds that could meet but never truly merge. Heartbroken, Peter retreated. For weeks, he threw himself back into his work, trying to forget Kahaya and the world she had revealed to him. But the colors of Java had seeped into his soul. The ledgers felt lifeless, the pursuit of profit empty. He looked at his fellow Dutchmen and saw their willful ignorance, their dismissal of the rich, complex civilization they were exploiting. And he realized Kahaya had given him a gift far greater than romance. She had given him new eyes. He began to truly study the Javanese language, not through a translator, but with a dedicated teacher. He read the ancient poems and stories she danced about. He began to understand that her world wasn't a prison, but a tapestry of immense strength and beauty. At the same time, Kahaya found herself looking at the Dutch world differently. Through Peter, she had seen that behind the arrogant facade, there could be genuine curiosity and a capacity for wonder. She saw that his world, for all its rigid lines, was also built on a different kind of strength, one of innovation, exploration, and a drive to connect distant lands. She recognized the sincerity in his heart, even if his understanding was flawed. Slowly, cautiously, they found their way back to each other. But this time, it was different. There were no grand proposals or dreams of escape. Instead, they began to build a bridge, one conversation at a time. Peter did not ask her to leave her world, and she did not ask him to abandon his. He became a patron of the court arts, not as a colonial master, but as a genuine student and supporter. He used his influence not to exploit, but to protect and document the traditions he now understood were so precious. Kahaya, in turn, became his teacher, his guide into the spiritual heart of Java. Their love was no longer about two individuals trying to pull one into the other's world. It became about creating a new shared space in the middle. Their children, born of a Dutch father and a Javanese mother, were fluent in both languages, comfortable in both the formal halls of Batavia and the sacred grounds of the court. They were living symbols of a new, hybrid world. The story of Peter and Kahaya is not one of conquest or assimilation. It is a testament to the profound connection that is possible when we have the courage to look beyond our own understanding, to listen with our hearts, and to recognize the shared humanity that binds us all. Their love didn't just defy an empire. It reimagined what it meant to belong, creating a legacy not of spice and gold, but of understanding in a beautifully remade world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of connection from across the globe. Let me know in the comments what other historical encounters you'd love to explore. Until next time, stay curious